Hey there, greetings from Las Vegas and welcome to the bizarro world of pro football where Tommy DeVito and Zach Wilson were just named Offensive Players of the Week. What? Are we living in the Twilight Zone? Well, this show is going to be fun. Stick around. Beat the Odds starts right now.
From our Las Vegas studios, this is Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook Westgate Las Vegas.
And here we go. Welcome inside our Las Vegas studio. I'm Dave Hall.
And I'm Mariah Janos. What a week for the New York quarterback. Zach Wilson played great. Tommy DeVito has led the G-Men to 3 straight wins.
Yeah, right now there are only 2 teams who are eliminated from the playoff picture. Carolina and, sorry, Mariah, New England. Everybody else is still in it.
It's all right. We saw that one coming, which means the stakes are huge this weekend, and betting these games will be extra juicy.
All right, so let's get to it. Coming up on today's show, Jack and Teddy will show us which teams to ride and which teams you might want to bail on, plus, of course, their best bets of the week.
And I'm talking about the rookie quarterbacks that thrived under the Monday night lights. Plus, Brandon Marshall is back to talk controversial officiating after Patrick Mahomes' temper tantrum. I'll be back in a bit. Dave, over to you.
Hey now, Mariah. Back off Patrick Mahomes. All right, back with the boys. Fat Jack and Teddy, good to see you guys again.
Yeah, things are getting meaty in the league. I mean, they really are. Right. We got a lot of the pets' heads are falling off. You know, Tommy DeVito, Danny DeVito's long-lost son is winning MVP. I mean, we have all sorts of issues going on. Really hard for the general public to get out in front of these curves. And we had our fair share of bad beats last week as well.
We sure did. Yeah, bad beats-wise. How about New York and Houston? Nothing at halftime. You had an under ticket in your pocket. You felt pretty good. Oops. They get to 36 in the second half. Zach Wilson with, the best game of his career? And, of course, Houston, 3 different second-half drives. They go for it in their own territory. They get stopped, leading to field goals. The 3 field goals sent the game over the total. Ouch, if you had the under in that one. What about Jacksonville, +3? When you talk about, no, it wasn't 3 all week, but there were plenty of 3s out there. And for some reason, Doug Peterson, down 4, decides to go for the 2-point conversion. I didn't understand it. Neither did the bettors. Ouch for Jacksonville, +3 bettors. San Fran, Seattle, the total gets to 44.5. What happens? They get to 44, and the 2-point conversion fails, and then they don't score the last 14.5 minutes of the game. That one, no fun either. And let's not forget college. Army taking an intentional safety on the last play of the game against Navy. Yeah, that sent it over the total. Ouch, if you had the under.
Yeah, Peterson, that guy's writing his own analytics book. He does things absolutely wrong as far as instinct, everything else in those situations, has his entire career, and that'll end up costing him. You also remember that you're going to be on the both sides of these things. So, yeah, those were horrible beats for sure, but as many times you're going to have the over in that Seattle game as you will the under. So try not to overreact to bad beat situations because they happen every week in the league.
Sure. There's a couple of shockers we got to talk about, too. Philly and KC both suffering back-to-back losses for the first time since 2021. That was a bit of a shocker. And, of course, outright upsets. Chicago, New York, both winning by multiple touchdowns as dogs. Yeah, pretty big shockers this past weekend.
Another reason to watch this show, though, we've been out in front of the Philly and the Kansas City situation for 2 or 3 weeks now, talking about their lack of offense with Kansas City and Philadelphia being a tired team that had to go on the road again. So, yeah, got to get out in front of those curves. You're going to make some money.
Is Tommy DeVito agent? Is his number in your phone, by the way?
You know, at first I thought he was like a rabbi or something. I mean, he had the hat on. I didn't know what exactly I was like. Now he's his agent, and the guy's cut. I saw some pictures. I'm really enjoying the whole.
What websites are you looking at?
No, they put it on TV. I'm enjoying the whole Tommy DeVito thing. I thought it was Danny DeVito's son for a while. Apparently that's not true. But yeah, I'm enjoying the story.
It's been fun, no doubt about it. And hey, 3 straight wins. So
you had New York last week. You're loving it even more, right?
No doubt. All right, you two hang tight. We'll get back to you in a second. Well, it is getting to crunch time for you bettors and for sports books. Mariah is at the Superbook Westgate, Las Vegas with more.
Thanks, Dave. I'm here with EVP of Superbook Operations, Jay Cornegay. Jay, I want to start in Philadelphia. They've dropped the last 2 games, and coincidentally, whichever team beats them, their quarterback jumps to the top of the odds board. So last week it was Brock Purdy. This week it's Dak Prescott. But I feel like that says more about Philadelphia than it does about those quarterbacks.
Right. Philadelphia has been very fortunate this season to get to that 10-1 record. They had a lot of fortunate endings to their games. I think time finally caught up to them. Their defense is really struggling, especially their pass defense. But I think they're going to figure it out. They got great coaching over there. They should be there at the end.
Now, sticking with Dallas, this is just their first win against a team with a winning record. So was this just a blip on the radar, or are they actually on the come up?
We've seen this from Dallas over the years, especially from Dak. Dak plays really well at times and then folds up in the playoffs. Until we see it on the field, especially during crunch time and or during the playoff time, we're not believers.
Now, opposed to years past, the AFC is actually pretty murky waters right now. Are you hearing anything about one specific team emerging out of this group?
The AFC is very cloudy, and every week we seem to get a different team, heading that conference. But you can't throw out Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore. Kansas City still will probably be there at the end. So until we get to the end, who knows who's going to come out of the AFC.
All right, Jay, thank you so much. Dave, we'll send it back to you in studio.
And thanks to you two. Up next, staying ahead of the curve. Jack has two teams trending up and one really fun team trending down. Plus, that Kansas City offside flag has been the talk of football. Brandon Marshall has some stories from his playing days. That's next.
Before we take a timeout with 2 touchdowns Sunday versus Kansas City, Buffalo quarterback Josh Allen has moved into a tie for most games with a passing and rushing touchdown in a single season, with 9. Who held sole possession of that record previously? The answer after the break.
Beat the Odds is sponsored by Superbook Westgate Las Vegas.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you with 2 touchdowns Sunday versus Kansas City, Buffalo quarterback Josh Allen has moved into a tie for most games with a passing and rushing touchdown in a single season with 9. Who held sole possession of that record previously? The answer, Arizona quarterback Kyler Murray, who also had 9 games with a rushing and passing touchdown during the 2020 season.
All right, welcome back to Las Vegas, home of Beat the Odds and the Big Daddy game in February. Scan that QR code. It will take you to our website, beattheoddstv.com. All right, everybody, it is Brandon Marshall time. Brandon, as always, great to have you. Okay. One of the biggest storylines this entire season, the refs. Seems like every week we're talking about the refs, and of course this week it's that Kansas City offside. So, what say you?
Okay.
Penalty, no penalty, should have been called?
That's a penalty. I mean, he was clearly offsides. He was clearly ahead of the football. And to be on the ball, right? First of all, receivers usually check with the ref, right? They're supposed to check.
Right.
And then all you have to do to be on the ball, considered on the ball, is just break the plane of the hip of the center, right? Which is why all the offensive linemen, right, they're typically just slightly behind the center, but they break the plane. The receiver, if you watch the play on the other side of the formation, was on the ball, but he just broke the plane. That's all he needed to do. So for Kadarius Toney to be that far offsides in that pivot of a moment is an issue.
When it comes to refs, are we being too whiny about it, like just in general? Because again, it's one of the biggest storylines of the entire season, or is it just that bad?
I mean, to be honest, me just being in the game for years, it's going to be winding year in and year out. The refs are only human. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about, do they have sides that they're choosing? Do they kind of cater towards certain players, like a Tom Brady?
Sure.
Is
Mariah's guy, Tom Brady.
Is Patrick Mahomes the new Tom Brady when it comes to that? Maybe. But, look.
He didn't get the call.
We're going to whine. We're going to whine. And there is bad officiating, but at the end of the day, they're only human as well.
I want to ask you about Dallas. Maybe their biggest win in years against Philly. Is it safe to say that this team is legit, like legit?
Yeah, no, I think they're legit now. And because they finally got that signature win. Now, Philly was coming off a stretch, right, where they played a lot of great teams, Buffalo, San Francisco. But in the fashion that Dallas won, right, they dominated, and they single-handedly really, I mean, I'm not going to say it was as bad as San Francisco beat them, but they beat them pretty bad, right? So with that boosts the confidence and the morale in that locker room, let them know that, okay, we are here. And, to have 10 wins, I think Dallas is absolutely a contender.
Real quick, almost out of time, your former team, Denver, now just one game behind Kansas City. Yeah. They going to make the playoffs?
Absolutely. Look at their schedule, right? We got, now we have Detroit coming up, right, which is a tough matchup.
But they're flailing
They
now.
are flailing, especially when they play against Chicago. But I would say, the rest of the schedule looks kind of cakish. And I'm gonna say cakish, not saying we're the greatest team, but it looks a little. They're all winnable games, right?
Sure.
So I believe that Denver will walk out of here with 10 games. They'll win 10 games,
wins.
and I think they'll absolutely make that 7th spot in the playoffs.
All right, Brandon Marshall, repping his team. Thank you, sir. Well, there are a few other teams trending up right now. Here's Jack with more on that.
Yeah, so the key to making money, in my opinion, is staying out ahead of these curves. You get in this long season, and some of these situations are going to change. And we saw this a couple of 3 weeks ago with Philadelphia and Kansas City. And being out in front of those curves will help you get on the right side of some of these games. Right now, you have a couple of teams going the right way. One of them in particular is Tampa Bay, of all things. I mean, nobody is excited about this Tampa Bay team, but they're a team. I do believe there's something to the fact that Baker Mayfield is getting more comfortable playing better under this current offense and defense with Tampa Bay. What he was with Cleveland was a whole bunch of offensive coordinators. He never really got set. I don't think they're going to be playing out here in Las Vegas in February, but they're definitely a team that we can get some value in over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Also 6-1 against the spread their last 7 on the road. Chicago's another team. Since they got sweat on the defensive pass rusher, they have been able to really keep points down. This team went from being a horrible defensive team earlier in the year, then they've been playing really good defense. Their offense is getting better. Fields is looking a lot more competent. And so I would say there's some value going forward with Chicago as well.
And Moore, such a stud weapon.
Right? I mean, yeah, this is a team that they're evolving and they're getting better. And so you got to be able to recognize that as you're going through the year. Again, trying to stay out in front of these curves. After they win 3 or 4 in a row, it's a little late to make money.
Sure. Well, speaking of evolving, there seems to be some offenses that used to be pretty terrible that might finally be evolving, Teddy.
We might call it attack of the dead offenses. I mean, really, dead offenses coming back to life all across the league last week. New England, they hadn't scored 3 touchdowns since what, September? They scored 3 touchdowns in the first half at Pittsburgh last week. Now, they didn't do anything in the second half. Might be a little bit fraudulent there, but a positive sign. New York hanging 30 on Houston. Zach Wilson, maybe the best game of his career, a 300-yard performance. AFC Offensive Player of the Week. New Orleans hung 28 on Carolina. Then again, that's another one you might want to take with a grain of salt. They gained only 4.0 yards per play, 207 total yards in that game. So they scored 28. Wasn't all the offense. Justin Fields. And Jack was just talking about Chicago. Chicago's showing progress. Their highest scoring game since October. And let's not forget Monday night, what Tommy Cutlets did, and Tennessee as well, another struggling offensive team. The G-Men and Tennessee both finding ways to put the biscuit in the basket, scoring touchdowns Monday night. So dead offenses coming back to life.
Trying to figure out which of these we can pluck out and say that will continue, and which we don't want to overreact to the recency bias of what we've seen 1 or 2 weeks in a row.
Speaking of bias, I'm a big Kansas City fan. Could this be the week? Everybody's bagging on them. They're calling Mahomes a crybaby. Could this finally be the week where they start to put it together and, like you say, get in front of the trend and that offense finally get going?
They have offensive weapons problems. They don't have enough people on offense to get the ball to. That's been their biggest problem. I'm a wait and see with Kansas City's offense right now. Combine that with the fact that this team's not used to losing. I mean, what we saw out of Mahomes and company is a team that's frustrated not only because of the call, but because they're just not used to losing games in a row. So how they circle those wagons, but more importantly, it's a symptom of a bigger problem. This has been going on all year. They're not scoring points, especially in the second half, because they have limited weapons.
It won't be easy against that Belichick defense this weekend, for sure. All right, now it's time, you guys, for the most exciting 60 seconds in TV. It's our prop showdown. We'll see what these two guys are battling over. That's next.
Before we take another timeout, with an overtime punt return touchdown in Week 14, Baltimore wide receiver Tylan Wallace became just the 4th player in league history to record an overtime punt return touchdown. Who are the other 3? The answer after the break.
You're watching Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook Westgate, Las Vegas.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you, with an overtime punt return touchdown in Week 14, Baltimore wide receiver Tylan Wallace became just the 4th player in league history to record an overtime punt return touchdown. Who are the other 3? The answer, New York's Xavier Gipson, who did it in Week 1 of this season against Buffalo, Patrick Peterson, who did it with Arizona in 2011, and Tamarick Vanover, who did it in 1995 with Kansas City. Week 14 closed out in the best way possible. Not only did we get 2 games on Monday night, but they ended in the exact same fashion. A rookie quarterback leading his team to a comeback victory in the final minute. Let's start in Miami, where the big fish turned into minnows as Will Levis made every team that passed on him in the first round regret their decision. The rookie completed 23 of 38 passes for 327 yards and a touchdown. Tennessee is now 3-4 with Levis under center as opposed to 2-4 with Ryan Tannehill starting. Now to the other game. The undrafted stud out of New Jersey grew up right down the street from MetLife Stadium, Tommy DeVito. It's no coincidence his initials are TD as he's slinging that pigskin downfield for touchdowns. You know his ma had lasagna waiting for him after that win. But in all seriousness, Tommy D completed 17 of 21 passes for 158 yards and a touchdown, ran 10 times for 71 yards, and didn't have a sack, a fumble, or an interception, leading New York to a 24-22 win over Green Bay. The G-Men are now 3-1 in games started by DeVito. They were 1-5 when Daniel Jones was under center, and 1-2 in games started by Tyrod Taylor. Whether he sticks with New York or goes elsewhere, Tommy DeVito has proven that he belongs in this league. With 3 wins, DeVito and Levis are tied for the second most among rookie quarterbacks this season. Only C.J. Stroud, who's led Houston to a 7-6 record, has won more. In a season where the highly drafted Bryce Young has been a disappointment and the highly drafted Anthony Richardson is out for the season with an injury, Levis is looking like a wise second-round investment by Tennessee. And DeVito has emerged as one of the league's best stories. A round of applause for the Monday Night Rookies.
All right, these guys haven't seen a gym since Pluto was still a planet, but no matter. It's Teddy against Jack in our prop showdown. Today, the boys are going to debate AFC or NFC. Who's going to win the title?
I did 11 girl push-ups yesterday. I resent that remark.
11?
11 of them, yes.
Oh,
Sharp money.
My arms are burning.
Sharp money's on the under.
A new career high.
Yeah. So I'm going to argue for the NFC side here in the big game in February. Minus 130, the current bettable number on NFC over AFC in the big game. Look, NFC's got the top 2 teams, and one of the top 2 teams is a field goal better than anyone else. So barring 2 upsets, NFC's going to be chalk in the big game. AFC top contenders, they all have flaws. KC, Buffalo, Miami, Baltimore, none a complete team. And AFC's got more live dogs that have a chance to make some noise, who'd be big underdogs in the big game. Teams like Cincy or Cleveland or Jacksonville or Denver, they'd all be big dogs if they play in February. And I don't think the NFC second-tier teams are good enough to knock off the top contenders. Detroit, Philly, Green Bay, Minnesota, nah. It's going to be one of the top 2 in the NFC, and that's why they deserve to be the chalk.
Yeah, that math makes a lot of sense if we're taking the highlight team of the AFC and the highlight team of the NFC and say you two play each other. But what we have in the playoffs is a grueling schedule that you have to beat each other. And so I like the idea of getting one of the AFC teams to get momentum and some confidence rolling through some inferior opponents, whether it's Baltimore or somebody else, which I talked about Baltimore back in literally August. They're going to be confident and high and rolling, where the team coming out of the NFC is going to have a really physical, really hard matchup to get into that game. That sometimes can play a big part of it, not to mention injuries. We saw what happened with San Francisco last year. So a tougher road, I don't know, is necessarily a good thing. Give me AFC with a little bit of an underdog.
All right, fellas, good stuff. Good duel. Now, for the big moments. Oh, wow. He's growling now.
I don't know.
Can Dallas cover as a road dog? Can Tampa cover as a road dog? Well, these two have thoughts. Their best bets are next.
Before we take our final timeout, with 84 receiving yards in Week 14, LA wide receiver Puka Nacua became the 4th wide receiver since 1966 to record at least 1,100 receiving yards in his first 13 career games. Who were the other 3? The answer after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you, with 84 receiving yards in Week 14, LA wide receiver Puka Nacua became the 4th wide receiver since 1966 to record at least 1,100 receiving yards in his first 13 career games. Who were the other 3? The answer, Odell Beckham Jr., Anquan Bolden, and Randy Moss.
All right, we need to finish this show in style, and in order to do that, we need Mariah to bust out that amazing New York girl accent of yours.
Okay, what do you want me to say?
Maybe best bets, something?
All right, Teddy, take it away with your best bets for this weekend's
Oh
games,
my
please.
gosh.
Well done. Let's talk about Buffalo and Dallas. And I'm going to take a look at Dallas plus the points in this one. I'm not convinced that Buffalo has solved all their problems because they got the key flags down the stretch against Kansas City. The offense still didn't move in the second half. The defense still had their share of issues. And we look at Buffalo's wins since week 4 of this season. 3 bottom feeders and last week against KC. They're not regularly beating quality foes. Dallas still has value, at least in this bettor's opinion, because the markets don't trust them stepping up in class yet, even after what they did last week against Philly. Elite team as an underdog, count me in. Give me Dallas plus the points.
Now, last week we had Cincinnati and Dallas. Forget about it, right? Forget about it, exactly. Tampa Bay this week, I have no accents other than hillbilly. Tampa Bay plus the points against Green Bay. I talked about it a little earlier in the show. I think this is a spot where you're getting some value with Tampa Bay. The number also says this game will be a lot closer. I think we saw Jordan Love a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, really good against Detroit when nobody was defending anybody in the secondary. Expect a better performance out of Tampa Bay's defense. Give me Tampa plus the points in that one.
All right.
How would you summarize that, Mariah?
I think those are 2 fabulous best bets, and I hope both of them cash so everyone can make some money this weekend.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
What's the key to that? How do you do that?
Honestly, I just channel my inner Real Housewife of New York, New Jersey, and just run with it. I watch a lot of TV.
We just picked up Yes Network viewers by the dozens.
Yes. Yes.
Fellas, we got homework. We got to start watching the Housewives.
Catering
apparently.
to the people.
All right. Well, thanks for watching Beat the Odds. You guys have a fabulous weekend, and we'll see you back here next week.